In this video, we're continuing on from where we left off. As we've already created our introduction form, we're going to be looking at how to set up a workflow. A workflow is a one-time setup that allows you to trigger events when a form is submitted. It could be something as simple as sending an email, producing a report, creating or updating lists, all the way to real-time integrations with your back-office systems. By default, all new forms include a basic workflow to generate a report and send it to you via email. This means, as soon as you start building and testing your form, you'll automatically receive the generated output, but you'll likely want to customize this and start tailoring the output to your particular needs. So jumping straight in, to access your workflows, you can click on Workflow in the top right-hand corner. Here, similar to the fields in the Form Builder view, click on your required workflow to view and edit the options. Starting with the key areas that we're going to be covering off is the Create Report section. Here, the report type is set to Generated, which is a simple report containing all of the fields and responses provided by the user. The report type also supports custom reports, allowing you to upload Word or Excel templates to output in your exact format, but we'll cover that off in the next video. So let's leave this as generated for now. The settings that you see here will allow you to configure the report around your particular needs. First off, you have the ability to update the report file name. As default, you can see the square brackets around form.name, which is what we call a placeholder. At any point, wherever you see these square brackets, you can click into the field and type in a square bracket on your keyboard, which will open up the placeholder selector. Any placeholders will be automatically replaced with the form content when the workflow runs. So this is great for if you're outputting a lot of these reports and want to save the files in a centralized location. It might be useful to append some additional information into the report file name. So for example, here if we want to add the name into the report file name, we can just open up our placeholder selector, click on name, and it will now insert that into the report file name when it runs. Moving on, Save as PDF will be automatically enabled, but if you're using a custom report like Word or Excel, you might want to output the original format instead if you want it to be editable. In this case, just set the option to no, and it won't PDF the file when it sends it out. When the PDF option is enabled, however, you have the additional ability to set a PDF password. This is great for your document that contains any sensitive information that you want to password protect. You can easily do that by typing in a password into the box here, or additionally, you can also use placeholders to define the password, such as if we wanted to use their surname, you can enter it as such. The bottom section allows you to configure some typical output options. The Layout Structure fields option will hide or show your headings or captions, which are shown in the form. Display fields by default will show all fields inside the form, but if you've got an extremely long form and only want to show the fields that have been populated, for example, if you've got a lot of visibility rules where fields aren't required, you can set this to only show populated. And then lastly, photo size controls the width of any photo fields. In the report output, a standard photo field will show on the right-hand side, like the normal fields, but if you're taking photos of identification, let's say that you want to show a larger photo, you can change that option here too. Now that we've configured our Create Report section, let's move on to Send Mail. The email recipients will already be set up with your name and email address, but you can add any additional recipients to your workflow by clicking on the drop-down and selecting them from the list. This list of recipients allows you to select from any existing administrators on the account, or you can use information captured within the form itself. For example, here, as we're asking for the user's email address, we might want to send them a copy of the report output. By adding them into the recipients list, it will use the email address that's provided within the form. In some cases, you might need to send the report to someone else that isn't already set up in Culverdocs, such as a group or department email address. In this case, please select Enter an email address under Manual Entry, which will allow you to enter the name and email address here. Now that we've entered our name and email address, all we need to do is click on the plus on the right-hand side here to add it to the list of email recipients. If you wanted to remove any recipients at any point, just click on the bin icon on the right-hand side to delete it. Moving on to the email subject and body, you'll notice a lot of placeholders that are already set up for you here. The email subject will default to New Form, and then the form name will be taken from the form name itself. So in this case, it will be Introduction to Form Builder. You can customize this with placeholders as well, as we did with the file name earlier. Here, I'll append the name and surname into the subject, so you can easily identify the email when you're looking at it in your list of emails. In most cases, you'll want to attach the report to the email. This has been defaulted to yes, but if you add a new workflow or create a new report, It's worth checking this being set to yes just to make sure the report is attached to the email as expected. Now that we're done with our workflow settings, the final step is to click Save Workflow in the top right hand corner. The setup screen will close and the workflow has now been saved, ready to go. Moving on, and in the last video I spoke about exception reporting. It's a great way to be able to trigger certain actions based on content within the form. So in this case, we have some fields asking if we were helpful, if you liked the video, or still have any questions. In this scenario, what we might want to do is trigger an additional workflow as an exception when one of these questions have been set to yes, just to notify a separate user or department that an action is required. Going back into the workflow section, click on the new workflow button, which will create a blank workflow for us to set up. In this case, we're going to use the conditions section to define the criteria that needs to be met in order to run the workflow. We'll select Still Have Any Questions field, set the condition to equals, and then we're going to set the value that we're looking to match. So in this case, it will be yes. Just like we did with the email recipients, click on the plus on the right-hand side to add it. You can create as many AND conditions here as you like, just by adding additional fields and values to the conditions. Now, unlike the generated report that was automatically created for us, this workflow is brand new, so we need to configure the areas that we want to run. In this case, we only want to send an email, so we'll skip the Create Report section and move down to Send Email. Here, we might want to send the email to a particular user. In this case, we're only going to send that to Gabrielle, and then we can click plus, just like we did in the last workflow. We'll also want to tweak the email subject and body. Let's update this to a user has more questions. In the email body, we can replace the existing wording and change this to the user, name, surname, still has questions. Please get in contact on email address. What this is going to do now is automatically trigger this email to go to Gabrielle with that email subject and body only in the case where still have any questions is set to yes. Finally, as we did with the last workflow, click Save Workflow in the top right hand corner to save the setup, and it's ready to run next time the form is submitted. During testing, you might find there's quite a few tweaks to the workflow, and submitting a new form can take some time depending on how large it is. As all workflow changes are applied in real time, a quick tip here is to reprocess an existing submission which reruns all workflows for that form, including any new workflows you've added. You can do this by going into the report screen on the left-hand side, opening the submission by pressing the magnifying glass, and clicking Reprocess under the Actions button. If you're only updating the Generate Report settings and want to look at the new report layout without reprocessing, you can do that by clicking Download next to the Actions button. The system's then going to regenerate the report and download it immediately without having to reprocess that workflow. That covers the basics of workflows for now, and please check out our other videos where we're going to touch on custom reports and advanced workflow settings such as integrations and list management. I hope you found that helpful, but if you have any questions at all, please do get in touch and we'll be happy to help.